Hi, everybody. I'm Super Julie Braun, and I'm the CEO and founder of superinterns.com. And today, our show is called Change Your Career Outlook. Don't say life is unfair. And this show is mostly for career seekers, but it might be just for anybody who's kind of struggling in your life right now. And you might be saying, oh my gosh, you're battling maybe depression, or things aren't working out the way you'd like. You might hate your job. Or you might be looking for a job feeling like there is no end in sight. And we're always here to help you at superinterns.com. So please come to us if you need a virtual internship. We provide those. And if you are a business and you need interns, we also provide virtual interns for your business. And our driver of the show, who's Evan, he's on our team. He is, and I'm going to point this way because that's the direction of where the comments are on my screen, but they might be on this side. I don't know, but I'm going to point this way for now. Evan is putting up the link right now to superinterns.com, and you can click on any of our services. We also do some career coaching for those people who need that help. Now, in the corner of Eric and me, there are these little hands that look like they're giving props. And if I clicked on them for Eric, right now I'm giving him props and I'm pretending that I love what he just said. And now he just gave me some. So thank you. Or somebody did. Thanks, whoever gave those to me. So, please give us props if you like what we're saying. Share our information, get it out there to the universe. We want to grow our audience because I think some of the things that we talk about are the inside secrets. And we've got a lot of really very talented and gifted people that we bring on the show, which leads me to our co-host. So today we have Eric Lopkin, and Eric is the president. So you've got kind of a big title there, Eric, president of the Modern Observer. Is it group?
Group, yes.
Group. And just share a little bit. Well, first of all, where are you calling from? And tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm calling from Middletown, Connecticut. And what the Modern Observer Group is a business coaching and consulting team. So in a nutshell, we offer one-on-one coaching to entrepreneurs and executives to really help them solidify their ideas, figure out what they want, how to get there, and then we help them along the way. And then for businesses, we do full consulting. So we come in, help them with operations, help them with communications, customer experience, employee engagement, everything they need to really keep themselves going and, achieving their goals.
That's great. And you shared earlier with me that you're working with a lot of incubators. Can you share with everybody what that means?
What we're doing is we're using our own infrastructure to launch new companies. So, for example, our biggest success story right now is a company called Support Info Go. And what they do is they create email newsletters and web-based calendars to connect people with specific disabilities to support groups, to drug presentations, educational presentations. They started with multiple sclerosis. So their first site was Multiple Sclerosis Go. That's already gone national. We have calendars for every state and the District of Columbia, and we've already gotten requests to go international. And in the pipeline, we've got in beta for that company, cancer, dementia, autism, and Parkinson's.
That is so awesome, Eric.
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing. What's that?
It's a fantastic company, and I was so glad they came to me to help launch them.
Oh, that is so awesome. So thank you so much for all the good that you're doing in the world. You know how I feel about people with disabilities and, challenges. Well, they're just different from, we're all different somehow. So, well, let's jump into the topic, because today we're really talking about changing your attitude and not feeling like, oh my gosh, life isn't fair. So we're calling this part of the show Pity Party for One. Why can't I get a friggin' job? So, people are battling job loss or unemployment. Some people, they graduate from school and they think, oh my gosh, I should have a job, or my parents are telling me I should have a job within a few weeks of graduation. And it might take them months. And in some cases, it takes them years to get into what they were, going to school for. So, Eric, I'm just curious, why do you think employers might be less likely to hire a job seeker who, doesn't have the right sort of mindset, where they might feel like they're a victim or something like that? What would employers pick up on that?
Oh, they definitely pick up on it. And I mean, we all pick up on people that do that in our daily lives. Everybody has someone in their life, usually someone you haven't spoken to a while, or a cousin, who every time you talk to them, it's, oh, things are terrible. Oh, this went wrong this week, and now I have to do this. And the simple fact of the matter is, generally, we don't keep in touch with these people because we don't want to deal with that. Employers are the same way. They want people who are going to fit into the culture, work well with other people. And when you're exuding this, oh, woe is me attitude, it just holds you back, and they see that.
I think you and I have the same cousin.
Possible. I believe everybody has a cousin like this.
I mean, I love my cousins, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's always kind of like the Debbie Downer moment.
It gets to the point where you see the name on the caller ID and you go, well, do I really want to pick up today? It's, yeah. Exactly.
Silence. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know that feeling. I've done it, actually, I have to admit. The other thing is, in those moments, I wish I had the automatic sound of the trombone that does the wah,
yes.
wah, wah, wah. Yeah. Well, employers can feel that. They can feel when somebody comes into a situation and they kind of have that, they're not very enthusiastic, or even if they're maybe coming from a place of shyness, usually passion will still kind of shine through. But if they're coming from a place of depression or victimization, or everything is crap, then employers can definitely feel that.
They always see it, because people don't realize how much it affects them. When you're dealing with a depression, or you're in a woe is me mindset, your posture changes. The way you walk changes. Mm-hmm. So it becomes obvious to other people, even if you're not realizing you're putting out these signs.
Yeah, we have a link that's going to come up here that Evan's going to put up. And the link, Evan, if you can do that, it's 10 ways to fight depression in your job search. And so, Eric, one of the things that I did is I actually printed out these different ideas, because you and I could talk forever about this topic.
Oh, absolutely.
What I wanted to do was I wanted to just kind of pick one of the things, or maybe two of the things, and for us to kind of riff on it. So you ready? I don't know what it's going to be. I'm just going to. Okay.
So comes out.
All right. Let's see. Oh boy. It says keep a job search journal. So keep a job search journal. So what does that mean to you, Eric?
Well, to me, that means, you're recording what you're doing. And one of the reasons you would want to do this is because it does sort of help you build momentum. Okay, well, today I sent resumes to three jobs. Tomorrow I'm going to do 4. Yesterday I met one new person that I can network with who might find me a job. Well, tomorrow let me try for 2. And it actually gives you what you've already done and a way to sort of keep yourself occupied and move forward with it by challenging yourself to do better each day.
Yes, I love that, because I'm probably like most people where I give myself stars. I mean, I don't know if people do that, but I give myself stars when I do a good job. So on a day that maybe I made that extra phone call, or maybe if I, again, keeping a job search journal, and I hope I spelled that correctly. I'm a little challenged, spelling challenged. I think keeping track and kind of also knowing, like, who did I connect with and how did that go? And if I didn't get anything, does that tell me the next week that I still hit them up again? I like to be very tenacious. So, and, you know, I mean, I think that's a big part of getting a job. So now I'm going to pick another one, because I think this is fun.
Before you pick another one,
yes.
Something else, you know, we're on social media. When you're on social media, everybody talks about analytics. Your job search journal is your analytics for your job search. You can track what you're doing, what worked, what didn't work, and help focus your efforts that way.
Love it. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
I wish you could reach over and maybe that's like something else Blab can
work. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I'm just a little goofy. I like this one, but I'm not really sure what I can say about it. But it's
perseverance is key. It's one of those things nobody really thinks about it much, but you know, I always looked at it as you only have two choices. You can persevere or you can give up. Well, if you give up, you're not getting what you want. So you have to, you know, focus on perseverance.
It is about just being absolutely dogged about it, just being a bulldog.
Yeah.
I like to say the only time that a bulldog loosens their bite is to get a better grip.
There you go.
And I like that kind of tenacity. And sometimes you just have to kind of dig down and find that place where you're not going to let other people determine your success. Very often we will let even ourselves determine our own success with the voices in our head saying, oh, you've called them too many times, or, oh, they don't like you, that's why they haven't called you back, or, oh, you did horrible in that interview. But the reality is you got to kind of turn that off, and you have to be your own best friend sometimes and say, no, you're doing awesome, and congratulations for making that extra phone call today. And good job.
Cheerleader.
Pardon me?
You need to be your own cheerleader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think sometimes we can find that in ourselves, but very often it's nice to find it outside of ourselves too, find somebody that can do it for us. Now, do you have a cheerleader in your life?
I really don't have one particular cheerleader. There are a couple of people I go to for different things, and they know more about what I'm doing in that particular area, and talking to them always helps me go. But a lot of times I have drawers and drawers and file cabinets full of material. And a lot of this is projects that I've worked on in previous careers. And when I start getting down, I start looking through what I've already done and go, oh, well, wait a minute. If I can accomplish that, this is going to be no problem.
You know, we do forget how awesome we are sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we do forget, like, oh my gosh, I created that thing back in the day when I did that thing from nothing. And we forget how amazing that was. And then we kind of only look at ourselves in our current condition, and we can kind of be, you know, poo-poo about it because, you know, maybe our most recent history, we haven't really had a success that we're proud of. So I love that idea of going back and kind of dialing back and looking at your prior successes and using that as fuel.
Yeah, see what you've already done. And also, I came across a great stat a little while ago, was the odds on your grandparents meeting, having a kid that turned out to be your parent, your father or mother, having them meet your other parent, and then having you. The odds on this happening, it was something like 13 trillion to 1. So just the fact that you exist, you've already beaten greater odds than you'll ever face in the job search.
Wow, that is taking a totally different look at things, Eric. So wonderful. Well, should we choose one more just for kicks? This way we're ending up on an odd number. What do you think? Okay. So one more, and then we'll move on to our next topic. All right. Ooh, that one kind of jumped out at me. I love that. Get professional help.
I've always, when I used to do networking events, when I started my business, I always used to use the explanation, you wouldn't try to build a house without a blueprint and professional help. Why would you try to build your life and your career without one?
People do it all the time. It is astonishing to me.
People don't realize just how much goes into it. I mean, literally, you're creating, when you just write a to-do list, you're creating processes for yourself. You're marketing yourself to potential employers. You're going through all of the same steps that building a business creates. When you build that business, generally, you hire professionals to help you. Why wouldn't you do that and get the most out of your life and your career as well?
Well, I think some people believe that hiring a coach or hiring a professional makes them look weak. But I think we both know, and if I'll use this analogy, everybody will agree after they hear the analogy, or at least I hope you will, is that if you look at any major athlete, I'm just going to take the Williams sisters. So there's those two little girls. Remember when they used to play each other on the court with their father standing off to the side, and they had all of those beads in their hair, and they'd be whacking that ball back and forth to each other? Well, he was their first coach. And then as they became and progressed, they got more and more coaches. They got a nutritionist. They got the personal trainer. They got the yoga instructor and the masseuse and the physical therapist and the mental coach. You know, they got their therapist. And they started surrounding themselves with this team of people who cared about them deeply, but also really, Eric, what you had said earlier, were experts in a certain particular area, and they all kind of integrated around this person, you know, around the Williams sisters. It's no wonder that those girls, those women have gone so far. Obviously, they had innate talent, they had grit, they had perseverance. They wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. But I'm sure that starting to develop those coaches and having that team around them to support them was part and parcel the reason why they are where they are today.
Certainly. I mean, Michael Jordan is widely regarded as being the greatest basketball player ever. And he constantly tells people he couldn't have done what he did without help from his coaches. They
right.
Focus him. They helped find where his weaknesses are, work on them, and grow his strengths. He had tremendous talent, but his coaches helped him refine that talent and get him where he wanted to be.
So getting professional help is huge. And, you know, both of you and I will give a plug at the end of the show. By the way, we're plugging you all the time, Eric, you and your company. But, you know, it's something for people really to consider. I was sharing with Eric before we started the show that I have 8 mentors who care and love me, which is, you know, wonderful to have. Sometimes it's too many. But some of those people I pay, they're coaches, and they've taught me a lot. They've helped me move my business ahead, and they've also helped me get my head on straight sometimes when I didn't know what to do or how to do something. So consider that you're putting an investment in you. And if your career is important to you, which it should be for most people, because we all have to work, you know, whether we are a barista at Starbucks, which, you know, here in Seattle, that's a really good job because minimum wage is $15 an hour. So that's a good starting job. And there's a lot of progress that people make in that company. But whether you're starting off as a barista or you want to be the president of a company, you know, your career is important and you should love what you do. You should be passionate about it and you should have a career direction.
Right. I mean, if you're spending that much time at a job, at a career, if you really have a passion for it, don't you want to use every resource you can to make yourself the best you can be at it?
I would say the answer is yes. But you don't have to sell me, man, because I'm part of the choir. All right. Let's go on to the next kind of topic that we were going to talk about tonight, and that's victim mentality. We talked a little bit about it earlier on, but, you know, whenever we haven't had a lot of luck, say getting a job or, you know, oh, I can't get the promotion or, oh my gosh, I hate what I do, but I'm not sure how to, you know, move over there and everything's horrible. We start blaming everybody else. Yeah. So we start doing that. Well, it's not me. I mean, I'm not the one with the problem. It's the economy. Remember, I mean, for like a decade, we were saying it was the economy.
Yes.
And then it was, you know, it's whatever the color of the sky is. Sometimes we can blame it on other things. So how can somebody get out of the victim mentality? What is that? What's the thing that somebody can do to really kind of stop blaming everybody else and kind of take that personal responsibility?
Well, I mean, the key phrase there is personal responsibility. You have to realize that no matter what else is going on, you have control of your own life. And I mean, I loved back when the recession was really at its peak, people would used to say, well, you know, the big problem is we don't have visibility. We don't know what's coming down the pipe. You never have visibility about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. We don't have crystal balls. You have to take responsibility and make the decision to make positive changes in your life.
I mean, those were tough times, let's face it. And I think both you and I started businesses right about that time.
I started my company in 2009, right at the beginning.
Okay, I did too. Did somebody hit us with a stupid stick that year?
You know, I was actually talking about this with someone the other day. And originally, when I had put together my business plan, I was working as a consultant for another company. And my idea was to do this on the side until it took off and keep my day job, which is a perfectly good plan. People do it all the time. The economy had other ideas, and about a third of the company I was working for, we got laid off. So I was talking about this with someone just a few days ago, and he said, well, that was the universe telling you, all right, this is where you need to be.
Yes.
Do it.
Excellent. You know, I started my first business, which was a marketing consulting business. And when the real estate bubble burst, I had that moment of I started seeing everybody pulling back their marketing dollars. Yep. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And it just so happened that I met my business partner at the time that year. And I was trying to figure out what am I going to do next, because I knew that people weren't going to be paying for my services for very long when superinterns.com was born. So it kind of, it was the universe saying, don't do what everybody else is doing, do something different. Right. And superinterns.com, you know, is kind of, I mean, in a way, it's kind of novel in that there aren't a lot of people that are doing this sort of business, what we do. I mean, we've got our friends out there. They're in the intern business for sure. We've got, lots of friends and collaborators out there. But it was kind of a remarkable time for us. I read somewhere that there's a big percentage of companies that are very successful that start during a recession or depression. Have you heard that before?
Historically, more successful companies come out of a depression or recession than any other time in an economic cycle.
What do you think why do you think that happens?
Well, perseverance is part of it. If you can get through that economic cycle, going through, good times is so much easier. A few years ago, we were doing a panel with a number of banks and talking about how small businesses can get financing. And this was, I think, 2012. And the first thing that they all agreed on was they said, well, if you're still in business and you've been in business since 2009, it's much easier because we know you're going to be around.
We are those bulldogs, aren't
yes.
we? One of my mentors, he has 5 corporations. He's a billionaire. And, he's like 79. I think he turned 79 this year. And he rides his little scooter, around the office. And he's just, wonderful. But I asked him one time, during all the times that you could have given up and all the problems that you had, and when you had to close your failures and you had to start over, what kept you going? And I love what he says because it's like so smart. He said, I'm just too stupid to give up.
There you go. Yes.
And I love that because it's so genius. It talks about his tenacity and perseverance and resilience and his stick-to-itiveness. And I just got a chill when I said that.
For
Eric,
a long time.
Seriously, if I had a microscope, you could probably maybe see all of my hair standing at attention like soldiers. But yeah.
For a long time, people ask me, well, how do you do what you do? Because, I've never been shy about sharing some of the obstacles I've had to overcome.
Well, and let's get on to that, because that's a lot about the victim mentality that you could have easily have had, Eric. Please share with our audience one thing in particular that makes you incredibly unique.
Well, the big thing is not too long after starting my business, I was diagnosed with a condition called cone dystrophy, and I'm legally blind. So that changed a lot about how I did business. I used to say I literally had to focus on things I could do with my eyes closed.
It is absolutely amazing because I know a lot of people, when they meet you, they have no idea that you're legally blind. Right. I think when I first met you, I was like, I don't think so. But then when you said, and I was like, oh, okay.
For the most part, people can't tell. But people used to ask me, like, well, how do you keep doing what you're doing? And I finally came up with an analogy that I use. You remember the old Roadrunner cartoons? Where
of course.
Wile E. Coyote chases the Roadrunner off the edge of a cliff and he keeps running. And he keeps running in midair until he looks down. And once he looks down, he realizes there's nothing there and he falls. I never look down.
That's awesome. That is an awesome analogy. That's so perfect. Well, you remind me a little bit of the story, and I'm probably going to blow it, but I'll tell it anyway. Christopher Reeve did, when he used to be Superman. So for those of you that are under the age of maybe 25, you may not know this, but he was one of the Supermen. And, in the movie theaters, everybody would go see Superman, handsome guy and tall and, just gorgeous. And everyone really liked him because he was a nice guy.
Yep.
And he had a beautiful family, great kids, a gorgeous wife, and what looked like to be the perfect life. And then he got into an accident where he fell off of a horse. And I'm not sure of what his diagnosis was, but I'm pretty sure he was paralyzed from the neck down.
Yes.
And he actually had to, they had to put him in an iron lung for a long time. He had to have apparatus to help him breathe. But he was asked once by Oprah or somebody interviewed him and said, well, how do you deal with being Superman and now being in a wheelchair for the rest of your life? What's that about? And he said every morning he allowed himself to be sad. And every morning he gave himself like 5 minutes. I mean, it was short. It was a short amount of time to just kind of have the allowing yourself to just kind of feel sorry for yourself. Because I think we all need to go there as emotional human beings. I think it's good for us to go there.
Yeah, you can't
not to muddle in it. What was that?
You can't continually repress when you're feeling that. You have to let it out.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what I found to be like so inspirational is that he didn't want to just sit in that forever. 5 minutes and then, okay, then I got to start my day and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do stuff. And he became very well known in the disability community as being the hero, because he was able to speak for so many people that can't get jobs because of their disability, because of discrimination, or, he was just able to shine a light on that. And I think he probably did his most powerful work in the chair.
And
so
the doctors kept telling him he would never stand again. He would never walk again. They kept telling him what he would not be able to do. And he decided he wasn't going to accept that. And before he died, he managed to get out of the chair and stand, which nobody ever thought he'd be able to do.
There's that perseverance and tenacity again, and not letting anyone else determine your success.
Right.
It just keeps repeating itself. So let's move on, because we're about halfway through the show. And, I just want to say, hey, everyone, if you just joined us, I'm Super Julie Braun, and I am here with my co-host. And by the way, you're to the left of me here, Eric. I might be to the right of you, or who knows where I am on your screen. But you're over here, so I'm going to point this way. I've got Eric Lopkin, who is the president of the Modern Observer Group. And Eric, we're talking about, just to let everybody know and kind of catch up, we're talking about change your career outlook. Don't say life is unfair. And thanks for sharing, by the way, Eric, about you being legally blind, because I think sometimes, people need to hear that to then kind of put a different spin or perspective on their own lives. And you've been a huge, huge inspiration to me for sure. Let's talk about having a plan, because I think one of the biggest problems that people have around this topic, when they're like, oh, life is so unfair, and oh, I'm not ever going to land in my career, and I've just been sitting in that unemployment line for 18 or 24 months. We know those people, right?
Yes.
So what about having a plan? What can you say about that?
Having a plan is crucial, but it gets even more basic than that, because even before you put together a plan, you have to figure out what your goal is. And getting a job is not a goal because it's not specific enough. You really have to figure out what job you're going to go for, what industry you want to look at, what pay grade you need to be making, and make it as specific as possible. Once you have that goal, then you can figure out, okay, now how do I get there? You know, Yogi Berra used to say, if you don't know where you're going, you have to be careful. You might not get there.
I love his sayings.
Oh, he's great.
Very hilarious. So that is kind of a basic start. And I agree with you. Just starting with your target. Have you ever met somebody and they're like, well, I don't have, I'm not passionate about anything. I don't really care about anything. I'm not really excited about anything. And how do you deal with somebody like that? I mean, where do you direct them and where do you start with someone like that?
You have to get down into the minutia when you're like that. It's nobody doesn't like anything. There's got to be something you're interested in.
Right.
And the few times I've actually found someone that, no, they could not come up with anything they were interested in, these are folks that needed professional help because you're dealing with clinical depression at that point.
Sure.
There's always something that interests you, whether it's, even if it's just one particular movie you really like. Okay, take a look at that. What is it that you like about it? What is it that speaks to you? Is it one particular character you identify with? What are they doing? When we do coaching sessions, one of the first exercises we have people do is we say, okay, it's 1 year from now. You've already gone through coaching. Everything's been a great success. Describe to me where you are. What kind of job are you in? What does your office look like? What kind of meetings are you scheduling? What work are you doing? And really visualize it with as many details as possible. And then people start going, okay, well, where do I really want to be? And of course, the quickest answer everybody gives at one point or another is, well, I want to be on a beach somewhere, not having to work. It's like, okay, take a step back. Before
we get to the beach.
Right, before you got to the beach, what did you do to get you there? And you just keep stepping back until you're at present day. Once you've done that, as you keep stepping back, each one becomes the next set of goals that you have to meet. And that forms the skeleton of your plan.
Love it. You describe it in a different way than I do. I usually start off with a cupcake. So my entire team, anyone who ever watches this or anyone who may even be here now, they're probably rolling their eyes going, oh my gosh, here she goes with the cupcake story again. But that's okay because, I love cupcakes, so too bad. So I always start with the cupcake. And if you were to choose your favorite cupcake, what would it look like, taste like, smell like? What sort of sprinkles or decoration on top? Describe how it's presented. The whole enchilada, becoming a better cupcake, I think is what she wanted to say. Yes, that's really good. Becoming a better cupcake. But when you can do that, if you start salivating, which I always do when I describe my favorite, that is vision.
Yes.
And as a creative person, every person is creative. I hate it when people say, oh, I'm not creative. Just by the very nature of being a human being, we are creative.
Everybody is creative.
Everybody. And so some of us are just a little bit more exercised in the area. So if you can visualize the cupcake, now you have to figure out how to make the recipe.
Right.
And the recipe are all the steps to getting to the cupcake. And, the first couple times that you try to make the cupcake, you'll probably make mistakes. I mean, for me, I get so excited when I make the cupcake that I forget to let it cool off before I try to put on the frosting, so the frosting's sliding off the sides. And so, I have some particular areas I have to work on with my cupcake. But I think the idea of what you're talking about is so right on. And that's what people really need to be thinking about, that plan. Start off with your vision and then back it up from there.
So, you're talking about cupcakes. Now, there's actually a cupcake store here in town, and they make combinations of cupcakes I had never thought of before that are absolutely delicious. And using that analogy, when you figure out where it is you want to go, you actually have to do some research and look around, because you don't know what you don't know. And there could be options out there that you haven't figured out yet. They didn't come to you. Steve Jobs used to say that if he had asked customers what they wanted on their cellular phone, nobody would ever have told him a touch screen, because nobody had done it before. They never thought about it. There's an old quote from Henry Ford. If I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
It's true. Very often the visionaries know more than anybody else. So we have to create it so they come. Yeah, absolutely. So the plan is so important. And I think to kind of dissect it down into the formula or the ingredients, or, what's the goal, what's the thing that you do before that and before that and before that. And to know that on your journey through your career, things are going to change. There's going to be hiccups. There's going to be detours. There's going to be problems that you're going to have to solve on the fly.
Yes.
And I think if you have confidence in yourself, if you really know, if you have the mentality, and sometimes it might also be a little bit coming from naivete, if you think, no matter what comes my way, I'm going to figure it out. I'm smart enough.
Yes.
That is the thing. If I could find that in every teammate that we brought on board and every client that we had, that they always had the mental attitude of, well, problems are going to arise, but we're smart. We'll figure it out. That's a winning team. Don't you think?
When you put together that plan, part of being able to overcome those obstacles is making each step in your plan as simple as possible. I use building a website as an example. When you put the plan together, you don't want one step in the plan to be build a website. No, you need to decide what pages are going to be on the website, write text for the pages, find photos for the pages. You need to break it down to its simplest elements, because once you hit a step in your plan that's just overwhelming, the tendency is to stop. It kills your momentum.
It's very true. We end up coming across sometimes the most simple barrier will stop us from reaching that goal. It's amazing. Sometimes I get stuck on the smallest, most insignificant thing. And I'm just like, oh, are you kidding me? Is this going to be the thing that's going to bring me down? Is this it?
And then you need to be able to pivot. I had a project just last week. All we had to do was move a website from one server to another. It ended up being easier to build a new website than to move it from one to the other.
Oh my gosh.
So we did. And because
I can relate to this.
Because we did this, now the new site is modernized. I mean, the old site hadn't been changed much other than some content in years.
Oh my gosh, I wish my web team were here right now so they could understand. That is so hilarious. I get it. And I think any person who's ever had a website that has had to move from one to the other knows that what you were speaking of is so true.
So, I mean, our plan was never to build a new website, but circumstances dictated that was the best way to go. So we switched gears and did it.
Oh my gosh, Eric, we got to hang out more often. I forgot how hilarious you are. that's just that killed it for me. That is awesome. Absolutely awesome. All right. Let's move on to our next topic, and then we're going to take any questions. By the way, I don't know if we had any questions coming up. I hope he uses WordPress. That is from Jonathan.
As a matter of fact, yes, I do use WordPress.
Okay, good. That's good. Oh, we got a plot twist there from Quad Kid. So that's awesome. We have a bunch of comedians over here on the comments. I just love it so much. I love after the show where I can just read through all of them and I relive the show again and just start laughing. So, it's like the cheapest entertainment ever. But let's talk about I was going to talk about getting help, but now I think I need to pick one more from our ideas because we've already talked about getting help. So, it's kind of a subject. So I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to pick. All right. What do we have here? This is a good one. Attend a support group.
Yes.
That is wonderful. Oh my gosh, I'm going to share something really. Okay, I'm very vulnerable right now, everybody. I'm just letting you know. I'm going to be very vulnerable. I was laid off from a job way back when. Now, I've been fired plenty of times, and I deserved it every time I got fired. But this particular time, I did not deserve it. The company just went through layoffs. And I remember they put me through job placement. And job placement is kind of a fancy way of saying that they give you a coach and they give you some people that will help you get back into your career. And it's a really nice service. I guess if you're going to get laid off, it's kind of a parting gift in a way. You might love it or hate it, but I have to tell you that it was really good for me because it definitely shined a light on my weaknesses. And one of the things was there was a group of people that were all going through this at the same time, and we kind of created our own support group, which was not really planned. We didn't have a name or anything. We weren't fancy. We didn't even bring donuts when we met. We just kind of, gathered. And it was really amazing for people to talk about their fears, to talk about some of the challenges that maybe their families were going through at the time. And it really seemed to help everybody know that we weren't alone. Sometimes when you are looking for a job and you're just exhausted, you just feel like I've looked everywhere. I can't get one. Or you're unhappy in a job, you feel alone. And when you join and attend a support group, you will quickly realize that you're not alone.
Yeah,
that there's other people out there.
So,
Eric, what has been your experience?
Well, support groups, first of all, they work really on 3 levels. The first of which is they tell you you're not alone. The second is the old adage, 2 heads are better than 1. So you've got a group of people working to solve a problem. And the third is we'll look at something that's affecting us and we'll think it's insurmountable. We'll look at the same problem affecting someone else and we'll be able to come up with answers. It's human nature. So by having a group of people with all similar situations, you help solve each other's problems. And when you're fighting a depression, when you're feeling the world's against you, being able to help someone else goes a long way to building up your own self-esteem to get you out of that cycle.
Oh my gosh, I wish you were here right now because I would give you the biggest hug. But because I can't, I'm just going to give you props.
Okay.
That was absolutely awesome. All 3 of those things are so helpful, I think. I love two heads are better than one. That's for sure. And I think in giving and helping others, you do help yourself.
Really?
There is a redemption piece in that. Now we've got a comment here that just, made me want to hug myself. And this one says safe space. I think that's something when you are in that support group, you are in a safe place where you can just be vulnerable, tell the truth. You may not want to go home and tell your wife everything.
Right.
But talking to some strangers, like, what are they going to do to you? So it's a little bit easier sometimes.
Well, there's also the fact that there is a certain disconnect. If you're going through all of this with your career, you go home and tell your wife, you don't necessarily want to say everything because it affects her. It puts stress on her. In a support group, whatever's happening to you doesn't have an effect on the other people, so you can be more open.
That is for sure. I mean, you can be totally real. Now, we have a comment over here from Renee. I'm pretty sure it's Renee. And she said parting gift when I said parting gift about getting some career placement, job placement help. She said, that reminds me, years ago, writer Dave Barry talked about a company in Florida years ago. She's not sure. It might be Florida. They laid off a bunch of workers, and a part of their severance package was a bunch of off-brand red-headed Barbie dolls. They probably needed a support group for that.
And if it's Dave Barry, Renee is right. It's probably Florida because that's where he's based.
Wow.
But yeah, that's one of those things. They think they're doing something nice, and I mean, I remember in 2001, I was working for a division of Reuters, and my entire division was cut. They just laid off everybody, and it didn't happen all at once. It was, first there was one round, then two rounds. By the time it got to us, we left the office, we're standing there talking, and we looked at each other and literally said, shouldn't we feel worse about this? But the workspace had become so oppressive and there was so much stress, getting laid off was actually a relief.
Yeah. Yes. And because you have been preparing for it for so long,
yes,
it was like you finally ripped the Band-Aid off. So, I can relate to that in a lot of different ways.
In most cases, you can usually see something coming down the road. I was in one job at a firm. My wife one morning came to me and said, we just got in the new school pictures from the kids. Why don't you take one for your desk? And I said, no, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to be there much longer. That day I was laid off.
Well, your intuition is on. What can I say? The radar is on, Eric. You got it going.
Things are going on.
That is hilarious. All right, everybody. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. We've been chatting for a while here, and I think there may have been one or two, not really sure, we may have missed. I'm going to see if I can scroll up and see any questions. Anyone? I feel like Bueller. Bueller. All right. Well, if there aren't any questions, we're going to, there we go. We got one. What are some ways in which I can network and make new connections to help me find a job? Eric, you want to take that one?
There are a load of ways to network. First of all, take a look at your public library. Most libraries actually have employment groups, and that's a great place to start.
That's awesome. I never even thought of that.
You can also look at local chambers of commerce, local business networking groups. Because people who are building businesses, ultimately, most of them hope to be able to hire. One of the big keys, though, is don't wait. Build your network now for what you may need in the future.
That is so true. I love LinkedIn because to me, it's kind of like my bag of tricks.
Yes.
So if I ever have a need, Eric, I think we got you from LinkedIn. I think Anna was probably trolling there one night, midnight, and she's like, oh my gosh, I need to get a guest for this show that's going to really be able to talk on this topic. And she bubbled you up. And as soon as I saw your name, I was like, God bless America, because I knew you were going to be an awesome co-host.
Well, thanks.
So, and I actually, wait, I have to take that back. I forgot how funny you are. So that once again is like a nice little surprise to be reminded. So thank you very much.
And using social media, talking about that, you want to create your profile to give the impression that you are a thought leader in your industry. You have to showcase your expertise.
Absolutely.
Go through your profiles and get rid of those drunken college pictures.
Please. And no upside down beer bongs.
Right.
So that's never helpful. I encourage people to make friends with human resources. I think that is probably one of the greatest untapped resources that we all have. So when I think of all my teammates, we have a lot of HR people on our team. And I always say, be their friend, get to know them, because HR people go on to big jobs, especially here at superinterns.com. When they come on board as an HR person, they're pretty much guaranteed they're going on to a big career, which means they're going to go to a big company.
Yes.
Then they're going to have problems. They're going to need writers. They're going to need video people. They're going to need creative folks. So if you've kept in contact with them, you could be their next solution to their problem. Absolutely. And I love HR people. I have a love-hate with them because some of them I'm not so crazy about. But most HR people, I really, really love them because I think their hearts are in the right place, and they want people to grow and help solve problems.
Yes.
So
I always tell people, if you're in a big corporation, if you're looking to get into a large company, your best friend is the secretary and the receptionist. Get to know them. They know everything that's going to happen in that company before anybody else.
They do because they've written the memos.
Yes.
So they know what's going to happen. Well, we're getting to the end of our show. And Sandra's saying, yeah, they're the gatekeepers also. That's true, Sandra. They are also the gatekeepers. So let's kind of button things up here, Eric. I'm trying to think of what I want to say. So I guess I just want to say to all career seekers and interns and people that are stuck in jobs that you don't love anymore, reach out to Eric, because he's got a great business, and he's here to help you. And we're going to put up his link again. We've been rolling it through the show quite often. And go to our website, by the way. We have a free ebook, people. You can go to superinterns.com, click on resources, and you will find our ebook, and you can just get our ebook, and it's called Why the F Can't I Get a Job? And we've got some really hot tips in there. We kind of, we don't use the best language on that title, but we're renegades. And Evan's going to put up that link. He's got Eric's link coming up. Eric, thank you so much for coming on today. What a wonderful show. I want everyone to connect with you because you're such an awesome guy.
Thank you.
And, we're putting up your Twitter as well. Eric, do you have any last few words of wisdom?
Last words of wisdom. I think one of the things you always have to keep in mind is that there's an old quote from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Your mindset will push you further than you ever thought possible.
So true. Absolutely true. So lastly, everybody, I'd like to thank Evan. Evan, thank you so much for driving tonight. We appreciate it. You've been a great driver over there. Anna, our producer, new producer for the show. This has been very good, Anna. You did a great job. And next week's show is going to be the same time, same place, but the topic is going to be for parents. I love this topic. I am so excited about it. It's called Start with the Lemonade Stand. It's never too soon to get your kid to work. And we will be talking with some experts, and you can subscribe. So Evan has put up the link right there. Click on it, subscribe, and come to our show. Send any of those parents that you know that have little brats. Send those parents to this show, because we're going to be talking to them about some of the key elements that children need to have starting very young that will help them as adults and help them grow into, great careers and really kind of getting the things that they want out of life. So everybody, signing off from superinterns.com. Thank you so much and have a super day.